Name something that gets passed around.
A joint.
A joint.
Legalized marijuana is always a very difficult question.
The time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
From now on, I smoke weed exclusively with white people.
Well, I'm getting higher next time.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man, the Snoopy Poop Dog.
There's definitely cannabis in there, and it makes sure that I can sleep now.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
Don't piss off your old dealer.
Marijuana is not the kind of thing that ought to be legalized.
I know you're not supposed to admit that you smoke pot, but I don't drink alcohol.
Let's get out of here. I have some really good weed back at the hotel.
I used to smoke marijuana.
I don't care if an adult wants to smoke marijuana. They shouldn't go to prison for it either.
Oh, bullshit, Kevin. You don't believe that. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Welcome back, everyone. Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio live on YouTube. So glad to have you here. Quick news from the world of Radical Russ. So sad to say that my longtime companion and the final remnant of my marriage has passed. My beloved kitty Isis. Yes. Thanks, Isis. My beloved kitty Isis passed away last night up in Astoria, Oregon. Yeah, I know her name's Isis, all right, but I first got Isis in 1999 in the summer when I had moved in with who was then my fiance in Boise in a house that she was purchasing. And we got the little kitty Isis. And so I assume she must have been born sometime in 1998 because we got her like summer in 99 and she was about 6-7 months old kitty. And, a great little house in Boise. It had a fenced backyard, and she used to run around that backyard all the time. And she would bring us treats. She'd catch a bird and then bring it in, and we'd have a little dead bird on the kitchen floor. I was like, oh, that's nice. That's great. And so what I did is we had a dog at the time, not Roscoe. This was before Roscoe, but we had a dog at the time and the cat. And if we put the cat food on the floor, the dog would eat the cat food. So we took the cat food in a water dish and put it up on the dryer. She kind of liked that too because it was warm and she could sit up on there, right? She liked that. And the dog, of course, couldn't jump up there. So as she brought us birds and mice, I made these little stickers of a bird. I made a bird sticker and I made a mouse sticker. And every time she'd bring us one, I'd put a sticker on the dryer, like a World War II fighter ace, right? For the confirmed kills. By the time we moved out of that house, there were 23 bird stickers and 9 mouse stickers on that dryer. She was a killer kitty. All black, green eyes. She was fantastic. And so we moved out of that Boise house in 2003. We moved to Oregon because we discovered you can. You don't have to stay in Idaho. You can leave. And we brought her with us, and she lived in the houses, the various places my wife and I lived throughout Portland. But in 2015, as we divorced, it became clear, and I was so heavily booked for 2016. Election year, I did over 100,000 air miles in 2016. And there was just no way I could not only keep a cat and a dog, but even have a place to live. I was homeless all last year. Technically homeless. Did not have an address I was paying rent at. I was just staying at friends' places. So I couldn't have a cat, couldn't have a dog. My ex-wife took the dog, Roscoe, but she couldn't take the cat. So, bless her heart, my sister friend, Carrie, you know her as Cannabis Carrie from way back, 5 years ago on the show. Cannabis Carrie took my cat, Isis, up to Astoria to live up in her place at Kensington Estates. And we name all of our places, by the way. So Isis has been living up there in Kensington Estates for the past couple of years. And Carrie did such a wonderful job getting her back to health. She'd gotten really fat, really, really fat. And it's my fault because I was feeding her this awful food, apparently. Carrie got her on this new food and she lost a ton of weight. And Astoria is this beautiful, natural place. She was outside running around, having fun. But over the past year, she lost her sight. She became a blind kitty. And then her back end, her hips and her legs just stopped working. And last weekend, I went up to Astoria, and the plan was we were going to put her down last weekend. But last weekend, she was really good. She was walking around. She was healthy. I was like, I don't know, because I showed up. She's like, no, I'm fine. I don't know, right? But she seemed to be having a pretty good day. She was blind still. She was still kind of fun watching her negotiate the floor and all. But, yeah, so last weekend we were going to put her down, but she was doing so good. I thought, well, no, she's doing okay. And we couldn't bear to put her down, and we thought, maybe she'll make it to the summer. But last night I was informed, Carrie let me know that last night was her last night. She did what cats do when they try to die. They want to go off somewhere to die. They want to walk away and be alone and curl up and die. I've had lots of cats in my lifetime. I know how this works. And her back end was so bad and her eyesight was so bad she couldn't. And so she was just pathetically mewling all night long last night, according to Carrie. And so Carrie just, kind of tried to make her comfortable, and she finally just took her last breath and died, like cats do. So this show is dedicated to the unfortunately named Isis, who Carrie called Mysis. 1998 to 2017, that's 19 years for a cat. Good long life. We'll talk about some weed when we come back.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
This is the pill that I prescribed for Sarah Young.
This is the pill that I gave to Sarah Young.
This is the pill that I brought home with me.
This is the pill that I stole.
This is the pill that I got from David Young.
That I stole from my mom.
This is the pill that killed her.
This has been the Russ Belville Show's anti-drug public service announcement of the day, exclusively on RadicalRuss.com.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
People addicted to marijuana are 3 times more likely to be addicted to heroin.
Okay, well, maybe you're high, too.
This is Radical Russ Belville with a word about stone driving. Numerous studies have shown that once you factor in age and gender, drivers with cannabis in their system have no statistically greater risk of motor vehicle crashes than sober drivers. But that doesn't mean you ought to be toking and driving. Those studies are referring to people with any amount of THC or metabolite in their system, not people who've just smoked marijuana. Simulators and observed demonstrations show that cannabis consumers do develop a tolerance to the impairing effects of marijuana and can perform driving tasks within an acceptable margin of safety. However, infrequent and novice consumers do not and cannot, and would be wise to never toke and drive. Even regular cannabis consumers should exercise caution before deciding to drive, as most state laws punish drivers harshly if they're discovered to have marijuana in their system. This has been a public service announcement from the Russ Belville Show.
Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why'd I come in here? This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and thanks to everyone in the chat room for your well wishes about Isis Kitty. I'm not sad. I have this theory. I have this equation I use when there's a death. And this is for humans and dogs and cats, although you have to do, the math is a little different. For a human being, when they die, I take 100 and I subtract their age. And whatever that number is the percent of how sad I am that person died. Got it? So like if a 7-year-old dies, 100 minus 7, oh my God, I'm 93% sad. That's awful. But if a 98-year-old dies, I'm only 2% sad. Like 98, yeah. You had a good life. You outlived most people. 98's good. You lived to 105, 115. I'm actually happy you died at that point. Wow, guy died. He lived to 105. I'm 5% happy for the guy, So it's the same for dogs and cats, except for with cats, it's each year's worth times 5, right? So Isis, right? Like she lived to be 19. That's a 95-year-old human, right? She's a little old lady kitty. So, 20 minus 19 is 1 times 5 is 5. So I'm about 5% sad about Isis. Roscoe made it to 11. Everybody knows dog years are 7, right? So Roscoe made it to 11. He was 77 years old. And so I was about 23% sad when Roscoe died. So that's how that works. It's the Russ Belville grieving equation, I guess. And I'm also a guy, everybody processes their stuff differently, right? I'm a guy who's into dark humor. I like gallows humor, right? So my buddy Ganja John, who's now in Huntington Beach, his message was something like, I guess Trump finally took out ISIS, huh? You come to think of me about the only ISIS that Trump could take out, right? He grabbed it right by the pussy. Anyway, all right, let's get off that topic. Speaking of conservatives, I wanted to talk about this story that we covered in the news in the first hour out of South Carolina. And what was that guy's name? I got to look up the news story. Let me just bring the news story back up here because it's so typical. Okay, so like back in, was it last year, I guess, on Bill Maher's show, he did one of his New Rules segments, or I don't know if it was part of New Rules or not, but he did one of his segments where he talked about, it was New Rules out of, and I think about it, but where he talked about how this tendency of conservatives to be heartless, cruel bastards, right? You're on your own. The yo-yo policy, you're on your own. Heartless, cruel bastards when it comes to gay rights, when it comes to immigration, drug policy, healthcare, drugs, etc., right? Until it happens to them. When it happens to them, boom, all of a sudden, big change of heart when it happens to them. Here's some examples. Think about it, right? And this was, mostly Bill Maher's stuff that he had done in his New Rules segment, but think about, like, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney's not a guy you think of as a socially progressive kind of guy, right? But on the issue of LGBT rights, gay marriage, remember when they had the whole 2006-ish anti-gay marriage amendments thing going on? During that time, Cheney was actually in opposition to that stuff. Cheney was actually, not on the side of the Bush administration when it came to restricting gay marriage. Why? Because he's got a gay daughter. He's got a very outspoken gay daughter. So it happened to his family, so he changed his mind. He had a different feeling about it because it affected him personally. Think about Nancy Reagan. Think about Nancy Reagan and how the Reagan administration was so opposed to the use of fetal stem cells for research. Because it's all about their pro-life, in quotation marks, stance. No abortions. We can't have any sort of fetal research, right? When really this fetal tissue research is from like non-viable embryos that are left over from in vitro fertilization treatments and such. Like they'd have been just thrown away anyway, right? It was another one of those stupid issues, right? So Nancy Reagan was completely against this whole stem cell thing because of the abortion and the kids and, little womb babies. Until her husband got Alzheimer's. Oh, and what? Stem cells could be a major treatment for Alzheimer's disease? Bam! She switched just like that. Bam! All of a sudden, Nancy Reagan was all for the stem cell research. Yeah, that's great. Let's keep doing that. Think about Jeb Bush, or Jeb Bush, if you remember from his campaign with the exclamation point. Jeb! Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida, low-energy presidential candidate. Please clap. No, please clap. There we go. Thank you. Jeb Bush had a pretty enlightened drug policy. He was pretty decent on the issue of drug addiction. Why? Because his daughter Noelle Bush was it crack or was it, I think it was crack problem that she had and had to do some rehab stints for it. So the conservatives, the Republicans in this country, heartless, cruel bastards until it happens to them. And that's where this story from earlier today comes back to us. Where this representative, state rep Eric Bedingfield, a Republican, they have one of those CBD laws in South Carolina. Back in 2014, Utah passed the first CBD law, and then all these other states followed, like bam, 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 one after another. All of the old Confederate South, the Deep South, have these laws. That's right. For my friends in Idaho, you're more backwards than the Deep South on this issue. So South Carolina's had this since 2014. No thanks to Eric Bedingfield. He voted against it. Here's a guy that 3 years ago could not be bothered to vote for a non-psychoactive cannabidiol oil to help epileptic kids that were being brought into the South Carolina State House, that were seizing on the floor and given CBD oil. Doesn't get anybody high. He could not wrap his mind around that and be able to support that. Suffer the little children, let them come unto me to be healed. And unless it's CBD oil, then let them seize, right? That was just 3 years ago for this guy. Now? Oh, well, now he's all for it. Now he is supporting medical cannabis legislation. Not just supporting, co-sponsoring it. Now, how did this come about? Well, because his son, his oldest son, passed away last year thanks to an opiate overdose and had been addicted to opiates for 6 years. Now, let me think. Let me do my math. That means this guy, his eldest son, had been an opiate addict since 2010. And when a 2014 bill came around to vote for CBD oil, he still couldn't vote for it, as his son is 4 years into a full-blown opiate addiction. And not until his oldest son dies can he look at it and say, oh, well, maybe this would have helped. Maybe if my kid had been hooked on weed instead of hooked on opiates, he'd still be here. Now he believes that it could help wean addicts from an opioid dependence. Now he believes medical marijuana could be an alternative to OxyContin or other painkillers. Because once it happens to them, the light bulb goes off. As Bill Maher put it, it's almost like some people lack an empathy gene. Like they can't put themselves in somebody else's shoes. They can't imagine what it must be like for someone else to suffer. They can't feel somebody's pain. Evoking Bill Clinton. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. They just can't feel your pain. So it has to happen to them. They have to feel the pain personally before they make any moves on these issues. Now, kudos to this South Carolina rep coming around on the issue. I'm so sad that your son had to die to bring your mind around on this. And I don't want it to have to go to those extremes for other conservatives in other states to have to come around on this issue. I don't want to see Butch Otter's nephew or niece have to become an epileptic kid before he gets his mind changed on CBD oil. I don't want to see the son or daughter of some governor like the one in Illinois have to come back from Iraq hurting
Get your own medicinal marijuana cards.
But at some point, I mean, somebody's got to find a way to give him an empathy transplant. Anyway, we got to take a break. And when we come back, we got all sorts of topics to cover. A Florida man busted for giving away edibles in a weird way. And we got a beef with Twitter we got to talk about. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Get your tickets now for the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference happening one day only in Eugene, Oregon on Friday, April 28th. You'll learn all about the latest OLCC regulations for adult use cannabis, including testing requirements, tech and branding, taxes and distribution, and the latest developments in medical marijuana regulations. OMBC features networking with Oregon's leading experts in marijuana, including State Senator Floyd Przansky. You'll also get to hear from author, actor, and punk rock icon Henry Rollins delivering the keynote address. Early bird pricing is available for conference-only and VIP passes, which get you access to the VIP networking events featuring Henry Rollins and other speakers. It's the 2017 Oregon Marijuana Business Conference. Tickets available now at OregonMBC.com. That's OregonMBC.com before April 14th to get your early bird pricing. OregonMBC.com.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere. Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, SoundCloud, Snapchat, LinkedIn, and Boise State University's 2400 baud modem bulletin board system from 1985. Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they aim you to say that.
Is this right? Just try not to drool quite so much on the end of it.
A public service message from the Russ Belville Show. Pod 2.0. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 22 after the hour. Hope your safety briefing was a good one. There is an interesting story that I first picked up over Associated Press and also covered in the Florida's Daytona Beach News Journal. Daytona Beach News Journal. And it's the story of a man named William Van Arsdale and a pot cookie. And this is a story that introduces all sorts of interesting considerations when you think about ethics and crime and punishment and all of that. According to the police, a man in Port Orange gave pot-laced cookies to a woman. Now, this is a 70-year-old guy we're talking about, okay? Let's first of all, the guy's 70. And he gave this woman, Renee Holloway, a batch of peanut butter cookies. And these peanut butter cookies were laced with cannabis. Now, the problem is, he didn't tell her that. Now, she was hungry, so she ate all of them. Oh, no. All of them. And then police say she began to feel woozy. According to the police report, he didn't mention the pot because he didn't think it was enough to affect her. All right, let's turn this into a teachable moment. The amount of pot that you put into a food compared to the amount of pot you put into a bowl is a different thing, because what you think is just a little bowl, a little bud, a little tiny bit, when you smoke it, is a whole lot more, like 4 to 5 times more when you eat it. Your body metabolizes THC differently. When you inhale it, it comes through your lungs. It is just immediately brought through the blood-brain barrier. You get your THC, Delta-9 THC, you're all good. But when you eat it, your stomach enzymes metabolize it differently, and you get 11-hydroxy-THC, which is 9 times more psychoactive than your delta-9 THC. So it's 9 times more psychoactive, and by weight can be 4 to 5 times more potent overall than if you just smoke the stuff. That's your first mistake. Your second mistake is trying to assume what anybody else's standard is. I didn't think it was enough to affect her. How do you know what affects her? Maybe she's never had pot in her life, and this is her first time, and it's edibles? Oh my God. So the poor woman, she ends up going to the hospital. The man, again, 70-year-old man, is arrested and charged with 3 felonies. Okay, now the 3 felonies are possession of marijuana. And you're going, what? My God, how much marijuana did he have? Well, it's Florida, folks. Anything in excess of 20 grams of marijuana is a felony in Florida. 20 grams for the metric challenged is exceeded when you hit 3/4 of an ounce. So this guy had maybe an ounce in his house. Who knows? No, it doesn't say how much he had. Maybe he had 40 pounds. I don't know. But even just an ounce of weed gets him one of his felonies. Second felony, possession with intent to sell. Now that tells us that either he had a larger quantity of marijuana or had it in different bags, or perhaps also had scales or other accoutrement that might suggest he was dealing. So the 2 felonies right there are a problem to me. 2 of those felonies are a problem to me, the possession and the possession with intent to sell. The third felony, reckless tampering with a product with risk of injury or death. And the fourth charge was a misdemeanor possession of paraphernalia. Now, the story about the reckless tampering with a product with risk of injury or death, that's the charge for dosing someone without their knowledge. You made a product, a peanut butter cookie, you recklessly tampered with it, and in doing so, caused the risk of injury or death. Well, let's take death off the table because the pot cookies weren't going to kill the lady. Now we get down to what you call an injury. Is she permanently injured from this? No, there's not going to be any permanent damage. As we know, people that overdose on THC, feed them, keep them warm, lay them down, take some time, 4 or 5 hours later, they'll be fine. So there's no real injury there. Now, there is the temporary injury of being dosed out of your mind when you have no idea it's coming. And this is where we get to what level of punishment is appropriate for this guy. Let's ignore the possession felonies and ignore the paraphernalia misdemeanor and just concentrate. If the only charge was you dosed someone without their knowledge, you gave them a medicated edible and didn't tell them it was medicated, what should your punishment be? It's an interesting thing to ponder. I think he should get in trouble. You should not be in danger. If you're making a medicated product, it is incumbent on you that you let the people know, the people that are taking it, that it is a medicated product. I completely agree with that. No doubt, no argument, of course. Now the question is it something that deserves prison time? Depends to me, man. If this is a malicious thing, if you're doing something maliciously, the intent matters a little bit to me. And the negligence matters to me in this issue. But why I worry about this is because there's a saying in the law that, bad cases make bad law. And that if we react to this guy who made cookies with pot in them but didn't tell the lady he gave them to they had pot in them, what happens if there's the next case where it's in a legal state and that happens, and it's somebody who made their own pot edibles at a party and had them out amongst other edibles and had signs up telling people that they were medicated or not medicated, but a sign went missing or they got mislabeled or the signs got swapped or something. Some joker switched the signs. You want to make sure that you come up with some precedent here that doesn't unduly punish the person who was the victim of an accident like that versus someone who was negligent versus someone who was malicious. Okay, so I'm just wondering if there's that amount of spectrum of this decision as far as the guy should be punished. And he is a 70-year-old guy. So I don't know. Does this guy deserve to be put in a cage? Runaround thinks he should do jail time. I think he should. Cajun says it should be treated like an assault. Yeah, okay. YTFP says, I agree with the third felony, that it should be a felony. That's what I'm wondering. It's like, is this a felony, though? Is this a felony? Is giving someone a pot cookie and not telling them it's a pot cookie, I don't know if I can put that at a felony without malicious intent. A negligence felony, maybe? It's an interesting question. Something we'll have to think about. Something we'll have to really think about because now obviously this is Florida. What's going to happen? Dude's going to get the book thrown at him. I feel bad for the guy. But what if this happens in Oregon? What if this happens in Colorado, California? What are we going to do? What's this going to be? We need to start thinking about what that would look like. All right, now another topic I wanted to cover here is what's going on in Colorado. Because folks are freaking out that, the Trump administration might do something. They might crack down in some way. So there's this bill coming around in Colorado, and the bill is to allow the current current recreational producers, the growers, and recreational shops and testers and processors, because keep in mind that Colorado's system is completely bifurcated. You've got the medical side and you've got the recreational side, and everything's completely separate. This bill would allow the licensees on the recreational side, if the Trump administration changes its federal law or enforcement of federal law, to go after the recreational companies, the recreational license holders. This bill by the Colorado Senate would allow them to immediately transfer their operation, transfer their license over to the medical side. And the article on this talked about, well, it'd be a huge tax loss because on the rec side, there's 17.9% tax, and then on the medical side, there's 2.9% tax, but the state of Colorado just might take the tax hit in order to protect its cannabis businesses by allowing them the safety and shelter of the medical side. And some people wonder why they call medical marijuana a sham. This is writ large in the state. I mean, the state lawmakers couldn't make it any clearer what's going on here. They're acknowledging that rec is no different than medical, except for the tax. They're just openly acknowledging it, and that they'd rather make 2.9% tax on the rec side than make zero if Trump shuts it all down. And it reminds me of when I first came to Oregon. When I first came to Oregon, I was working with Oregon Normal, and we were helping people get their medical marijuana cards, helping patients get their card. And at the time in Oregon, and well, it's still the case in Oregon, there's 3 different cards. You can get a patient card if you've got the qualifying condition. You can get the caregiver card, and the caregiver is whoever you designate. Doesn't have to be your husband, your wife, a family member, a roommate. It could be anybody, so long as they're in Oregon. Hell, I don't even know if that's a requirement, if you have to be a resident to be a caregiver, but anyway. So we had a patient card, a caregiver card, and then a grower card, which is, now normally you'd think, well, what's the point of the caregiver card? Is that so someone can grow the plants for the patient? Yeah, kind of. That can be it. But it can also be a spouse or somebody who's living with them and helping tend to their needs. The grower card was instituted because if the caregiver and the patient lived in the same place that couldn't grow, they could get a third party to grow for them. So there's 3 cards. And we used to, I remember one time when I was counseling a patient and I said, well, are you going to grow for yourself? Yeah. Oh, well, then you won't need a grower card. Do you have a caregiver? Do you have someone caring for you? No, I live alone. Okay, well, you don't need a caregiver card. And I was taken aside and said, no, dude, don't do that. Even if they're growing for themselves, even if they don't have a caregiver, have them designate a caregiver and have them designate a grower, because that spreads out the umbrella of protection. We get 3 people protected from arrest, 3 people that can possess 1.5 pounds of marijuana, 3 people that can grow 6 plants. Collectively between the 3, right? You can't all do it. And of course, they would diligently check up on that to make sure that all 3 of you aren't doing the same thing in those places, right? They'd have cops at 3 different locations at the same time to check on that, right? Wink. But we were doing that under the radar, man. We were saying that, behind the scenes. It wasn't any official thing. It was just like, hey, if you got 3 cars, if you can make 3 people safe from arrest, do it. Now the whole state of Colorado is going to do it with an entire recreational system. They're just going to say, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, now you're on medical. And they wonder why people call it a sham. All right, when we come back, we got to talk about my beef with Twitter, cannabis-assisted sobriety in the New York Times, and getting deported for smoking legal pot. Ugh. When we return.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
I hope you were as much fun on that dais as you were on your couch.
Well.
Okay, well, maybe you're high, too. Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that.
This sucks. I hate...
Yeah. A public service message from the Russ Belville Show. Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is Dan Michaels from danmichaelsaudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 37 after the hour here from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon. And I have to apologize to the folks at Students for Sensible Drug Policy. And it's no big deal, really, but we'll talk about it at the end segment. So I got 4 different stories I got to cover here in the next 12 minutes. So I got 3 minutes for each. We'll save the SSDP thing for the end. Tom Angel informed me about the latest problem for the cannabis industry, the cannabis community online. And I already had to deal with a couple of mine, right? Like AdWords wouldn't take one of my accounts. And, if it says marijuana, mentions marijuana, you can't have a Facebook ad or a Google ad, those kind of things, right? So we've been dealing with this censorship online for quite a while now. The latest one, Twitter censors latest posts with words pot or marijuana in them. So if you're looking to, this is from U.S. News and World Report. If you're looking to follow news and advocacy about an anticipated Vermont legislature vote this week on legalizing marijuana, a search for the latest tweets that use the combined terms Vermont and marijuana will, for many Twitter users, yield 0 results. Same goes for searches for tweets using the terms pot, weed, or cannabis. The latest results for jackass and jerk, words generally printed without censorship by news outlets, also yield a blank page with the message nothing came up for that search, which is a little weird. Maybe check what you searched for and try again, end quote. The omissions appear to be the product of a new default censorship by Twitter, with users required to opt out of a filter to see uncensored results. It's not clear when specific search term restrictions took effect or how decisions on restricted terms were made. So let's just restate this so you understand what's going on. If you get Twitter, or you don't even have to have a Twitter account, you can go to twitter.com and just search it to see what people are talking about if you want to. If you go to twitter.com right now, and it's the first time you've ever been there and you don't have an account, and you type in marijuana, nothing's going to come up. As if nobody on Twitter is talking about marijuana. Come on now. What they've done is they've set up a safe search. Now, you can understand that they would safe search things like, curse words or racial epithets, right? I could see why they may do that. But the word marijuana? Well, it's drug use, right? It's drug use. And they want to censor drug use. We can't have people on Twitter, the unwashed masses, the eyes of children, perhaps, seeing a Twitter search result and see that people are talking about drugs, talking about marijuana, talking about pot. Except there's one problem. U.S. News and World Report started typing in some other words. They typed in heroin and dope, and those don't come up either. Again, can't be talking about drugs, but OxyContin, well, that one comes right up. You can search for kratom. It's restricted. Kava is not. And so forth. They've got all these different items that are supposedly offensive that are default blocked. You have to go into your settings and say, no, it's okay. I want to see dirty things. I want to see curse words and racial epithets and talk about drugs. You have to opt into that. You have to opt into seeing results about marijuana or pot or weed or heroin or dope. Now, Tom Angel's got a petition up on this, and you can sign this petition at change.org, because marijuana should not be, drugs themselves should not be issues that are censored by default. How are people going to get any decent information about the opioid crisis, heroin epidemic, or marijuana legalization if those things don't show up in the search results? So that's a big problem, and we're going to be signing that. I will forward that same petition link. I'll forward that link through my Twitter account as well. Now, apparently you can get around this if you hashtag marijuana. Hashtag marijuana will be okay. All right, another story that we've got to get to is in the New York Times. I love it when I've got a scoop that the New York Times doesn't have. You may remember 3 weeks ago, we interviewed addiction specialist Joe Schrank on the show, who is the man behind a cannabis-assisted sobriety center. He's running this clinic, a rehab clinic for people suffering from opioid addiction, where he uses cannabis to help them get off, kick the opiate withdrawal and to be able to deal with their pain and such. And it's controversial because the 12-step people, it's not sobriety. You're not absolutely sober. Here, have some coffee and cigarettes. You're not absolutely sober. They don't like it, and a lot of the addiction people don't like it. And some other people say, well, you're just trading one addiction for another, which Schrank says, good. Okay. If you got to choose what to be addicted to, then let's pick the one that won't kill you. That sounds like a good idea. Well, now the New York Times has followed up on this, and there's a great story on the Times right now about the heroin-assisted or cannabis-assisted sobriety, recovering from the opiate epidemic. The timing couldn't be better with the announcement of Christie being appointed for this opiate task force, this federal opiate task force. So the more they know about this, the more the Times is putting this in front of the decision makers. They see this day after day. Hey, marijuana helps opiate addiction. Marijuana helps opiate addiction. Marijuana helps opiate addiction. Great news. Glad that's happening. Amanda Ryman is also featured in the story, formerly with Drug Policy Alliance, good friend of the show. So check that out in the New York Times, Cannabis-Assisted Sobriety. Now, another story that we've got to get to, and this one, Leafly has put together, Chris Roberts, great writer, has put together a 3-part series. The first part came out today, and it discusses the problem of people who are, green card holders or visa holders, immigrants, legal immigrants coming into America, or who live in America and then leave for, visit their family, go to school, whatever, go on vacation. And when they come back, they can't get back into the country. The story opens with the discussion of a young man who they don't identify who he is, but he was trying to get into the country after going abroad, and I've read numerous stories like this, and they ask questions at Customs and Border Patrol, and now the customs people have been asking more aggressive questions regarding your drug use, regarding your marijuana use. And some people are responding to these questions that point out, like, yeah, I went to the States, and I went to Colorado, went to Oregon, I went to Washington, went to Washington, D.C., where it's legal. I smoked weed because it's legal. Without realizing that as far as Customs and Border Patrol are concerned, it's not legal. They work under federal law. And so these people, even, Americans and folks that have been living here for a long time, are getting caught up at the border because they admit to their marijuana use, and then Customs won't let them into the country or suspends their visas or takes their passports because they've admitted to drug use. Well, we can't have a bunch of drug users coming into this country. God, this is just amazing how this is happening. So, according to this post, it says, under the Trump administration, experts are advising immigrants to refrain from all cannabis use, including for state legal medical purposes. Do not seek employment in the cannabis industry. Remain silent when asked about past cannabis use. Scrub mobile phones and social media accounts of any mention of cannabis. Now, this is the other thing. Oh my God, this is also problematic. I saw a graph recently of the massive increase in seizures of laptops, of tablets, of smartphones for people crossing the border. And if you don't have it encrypted, and you don't have a password, if it's just a swipe to open, they'll swipe and open, and they'll start looking through your pictures. They'll start looking through your contacts, and oh, here's your Facebook app that's automatically logged on to your account, and we can look through and see, well, oh, here's you smoking weed in Colorado. Oh, here's you holding the bong with your friends. Sorry, you don't get in the country. Now, this is concerning to me because I leave the country from time to time, and it's not much of a stretch to say that I'm a pot smoker, right? So it's to the point now where I believe that when you're crossing the border, you need to flash your phone. If you're not encrypting it, you should just flash it. And what that means is just reset your phone back to its factory settings. Now, I'm an Android guy. I don't know how it works for the iPhone, folks. I'm an Android guy, so all the apps that I've ever downloaded on my phone, the Google Play Store knows that. And all the data that my apps work with, it's all stored in the cloud. So I can take my factory reset phone in the hotel in the other country and get on Wi-Fi and then re-download all my apps and re-download all my data and photos and stuff. A lot better than it falling into the hands of Customs and Border Patrol and them snooping through it and finding out all your deepest, darkest secrets. And that's the reality we're living with. I'm now at a point trying to figure out how I do this with the laptop. With this laptop, I take and do the show remotely. If I have to cross the border with this laptop. Now, the laptop itself runs off of a solid state drive. I may take the solid state drive out of the computer. I may take it out of the computer and, I don't know, mail it in advance to wherever I'm going, just so they can't rifle through my computer when I cross the border. It's just hard to believe that it's come to this, that we're at this point in America. And one last update, a story that comes from the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin. This had to do with Illinois in their campaign for legalizing medical marijuana, where there were some companies, cannabis companies, that were donating to the campaign. And according to the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin, Cannabis companies can campaign. To a federal judge, the state's ban on political donations by the medical marijuana industry to others was fundamentally different from similar limits imposed on lobbying liquor and gambling interests. It was inexplicably narrow, unlike lobbyist and contractor bans that were aimed at deterring corruption more generally, the judge wrote. And it came about much more recently than the liquor industry bans after the U.S. Supreme Court loosened campaign finance laws in 2010 and 2014. Further, it was not supported by a track record of previous corruption cases like the gaming bans. Those differences helped lead a U.S. district judge to decide that as part of a 2013 Illinois medical marijuana law that banned campaign contributions from cannabis cultivation centers and dispensaries violated the First Amendment. He wrote a 22-page decision. He wrote the section of the Illinois election codes that prohibits cultivation centers and dispensaries from giving to candidates did not meet constitutional muster. So good news, at least, coming out of Illinois on that case. As promised, when we come back to close up the show, we'll talk about the PDX SSDP conference that took place this weekend that I wasn't at, and I'll tell you why when we come back.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
I do support the use of medical marijuana, and I think even there we need to do a lot more research.
Okay, well, maybe you're high, too.
Marijuana, morning, noon, and night. You have 2 years longer than people that don't smoke and don't drink. And 8 to 24 years longer than people that do. You gotta be out of your mind not to smoke dope. Once you know this, not even 2 years longer if you smoke it, if you eat the seed out of 3 million seeds and food stuff on earth, the number one thing in the whole world is hemp from 1 to 100 before you get to soybeans. It's the safest thing you can do in the universe.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argusville. What are you smoking there, boy?
This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 53 after the hour. And as we close up shop today, my brief apology to the folks at Students for Sensible Drug Policy. They had their national conference in Portland this weekend. And you'd think, well, perfect. It's in Portland, Russ. You can be right out there and do it. And that's what I thought, too. So I went and got myself a media pass and planned to go out this Saturday and Sunday to the far side of town over, actually, by the Washington border, to go to the SSDP conference. So what happened was Saturday morning. Friday after the show, or when I should have been doing the show, I should say, while the show was supposed to be on Friday afternoon, I was busy trying to make more money so we can stay in this house. And to do so, I have turned one of the rooms in this house into an Airbnb room, and I'm working on a second. And so that's what took me away on Wednesday. I had to go meet with the landlord to get some papers signed to do that. That's why I didn't have a show Wednesday. And then Friday I was busy I wanted to get it done by the end of the week. So I got it all filed and uploaded to Airbnb and set, right? So I figured, all right, I'll get this Airbnb thing done on Friday. Then Saturday and Sunday, I'll go out to the SSDP thing. And then Monday, be back for another show, right? Well, I posted this Airbnb thing Friday night. 2 hours later, it was booked for the next day. Like, it was booked for Saturday. The room was like, no sooner had I posted it. Now, I've posted it as Delta 9 House and Studios, and that you can smoke cannabis here. And we've got an open kitchen you can cook in, and you've got your own bedroom with a locking door, and it's 420 and 710 friendly, right? So apparently that's a big selling point, because it got booked immediately by this lovely couple from New Mexico who came up, and I got to treat them to their first dab. So Mati and Gail, nice to meet you. Mati was from Germany, so I got to talk to her about European politics and cannabis and so forth. It was a lot of fun. We talked healthcare as well. So that's why I wasn't out there at SSDP on Saturday, because I had to get the room ready and set and get the people in. And by the time that was done, it was after 5. All the panels were done. And then Sunday, well, I still had my guests, so I had to cook them breakfast, because that's another thing I'm offering in the deal is I'll cook you breakfast. So I love cooking breakfast. So we had a big old omelet breakfast, and I hung out with them all afternoon. And yeah, so it just sucked away my whole weekend. And as it turns out, the room's booked tonight. I got a booking earlier before I started the show. 2 guys coming up from Stanford to hang out in Portland until Thursday. So they're going to be here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Maybe they'll be here to listen to the show tomorrow. We'll see. So if you'd like to get on board, because apparently these rooms are going to fill up fast. If you want to come visit me here at Delta 9 House and Studios, you can visit Airbnb and just search for us in Portland. You can go to facebook.com/Delta 9 House, all one word, Delta number 9 House, right? Delta 9 House on Facebook. Or if you can remember my short link code is rad-r.us. rad-r.us. So rad-r.us/Delta 9 House. And it doesn't matter how you capitalize it. If it's all lowercase, you get one room. If you title case it, you capitalize the D and the H in Delta and House, then you get the other room, the sativa room. The 2 rooms are sativa and indica. Earlier today, I went shopping and got a new layout of teas. I have caffeine and non-caffeine tea. And I got sugar, Splenda, stevia, and whatever the yellow one is. No, Sweet and Low, the pink one. There we go. So I got a bunch of that because I don't drink that stuff, but some of my guests do. Got a teapot. Got a whole bunch of stuff. So if you are interested, I am so serious about this. This is going to be my second. This is my second job, really, as an Airbnb host. I've got the place for you. 420 and 710 friendly. And I've actually made 3 different Portland tours that you could take. Oh, and by the way, from Delta 9 House, there's a pot shop 6 blocks that way and 8 blocks that way. So 2 different pot shops within walking distance. And I encourage you, if you're going to come out for this, unless you're going to go to the coast or to the falls or someplace you have to drive, you don't need a car to come here. You don't need to rent a car. In fact, it's easier to not rent a car because you don't have to pay for parking anywhere. I have got this transit system. After living here for the past 5 years with no car, I can get you anywhere in the city, and we have a world-class transit system, frequently voted tops in the nation in various categories. And trust me, I take transit almost every place I travel. 300,000 air miles in 5 years. I've done 60 cities in 3 countries. We've got some good transit here. So I got 3 different tours planned out where you could catch a bus from here, be in downtown in a half hour, walking distance, a little walking tour I've got set for you to enjoy the best of cannabis, the best of food, the best of booze, the best of shows, the best of music, the best of art, the best of museums, the best of nature. It's all right here at Delta 9 House and Studios. Check us out on Facebook.com. That's all the time we got for today. Thanks for joining us. For everyone here at Delta 9, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. it goes down